This is the roadmap I wish I had when I was starting out learning AI as a non-technical person. After 3 years and 500,000 prompts, AI now helps me with almost everything I do across 3 different roles. 5 simple steps. Learn them in order and AI goes from a guessing game to feeling like an assistant who actually knows you. I'm gonna be walking you through all 5 steps in this video and also provide you some free learning resources so you can continue improving. Let's dive in. Now, if you've ever typed something into ChatGPT, gotten a generic response, and thought, this isn't for me, you're not alone. This is the most common pattern that people experience, which is they see something interesting, they get excited, they try ChatGPT, they get a mediocre result, and then they give up. I guess I'm just not good at this. Now, research actually backs this up. A 2023 study called Why Johnny Can't Prompt found that non-experts overgeneralize from a single failure. They basically try one prompt, it doesn't work, and they assume AI just can't help them. Instead of them like rephrasing or iterating, they just walk away. And the problem isn't really you or the user, it's the approach that people are taking. So if AI still feels like a guessing game, no matter how long you've been using it, this roadmap fixes that. So step 1 is understand. Most people skip this entirely. I know I did. And I'm telling you right now, don't do that. Understanding is the foundation where everything else builds on. So when I say understand, I'm not telling you to become like a machine learning engineer or an AI scientist. But what I mean is building mental models of how AI actually works. Because without this understanding, you're always guessing why things worked or didn't work. But with this understanding, you can predict what will work. And if something doesn't work, then you can at least troubleshoot. So let me give you a 2-minute version of what's happening under the hood. LLMs, or large language models, are trained on massive amounts of text from the internet. So imagine getting all of the internet, bunching it into one file, and giving it to AI to study. So that's how they get their knowledge. How they work is they predict the most likely next words based on patterns that they saw from that training data. So they don't know things in the way that we do, but they pattern match incredibly well. So this explains the phenomenon of hallucinations, actually, where AI confidently says the wrong things because the pattern kind of fits. So this is really important to note because AI predicts based on what you give it. Therefore, context is gonna be everything. Because the more context simply means the better the predictions will be. And we're gonna be going over this more in step 2. Now I want to get into the mental model that I found really helpful, which is AI as a brilliant intern. So Henrik Nieberg calls it Einstein in your basement. So imagine you hired the smartest intern in the world, like just absolute genius. They know everything about everything, theoretically at least, but they don't know your context, your goals, and your preferences. So what do you do? Well, you give them context, you explain what you need, and you iterate based on discussions. So we talked about AI being a very smart intern, but the difference between a human intern and AI is that a human intern would actually ask clarifying questions if something's unclear. But AI won't unless you straight up tell it to ask you questions. That's why later, once we get into the prompting section, we'll talk about this asking phase and why it's super important. So if you want a deeper dive into this mental model and how LLMs work, Henrik Nieberg has an amazing video that covers all of this. It's called Generative AI in a Nutshell. And Andrej Karpathy, one of the founding members of OpenAI, actually has a 1-hour deep dive if you really want to understand the technical side. And both of those will be linked in the playlist in the description and also in the free resource I provide. So before we move to prompting, I would suggest that you pick your daily driver. ChatGPT, you have Claude, you have Gemini. Honestly, any of them works. The models are so good now that your comfort level and how you prompt what matters way more than what is the best. And if you can invest in a subscription, which usually is priced at $20 per month to access the best models, then I think it's super worth it. think of it like a tuition fee for learning AI, right? It's probably the best educational investment you can make in 2026 and beyond. So now that we have phase one covered, which is understanding, that alone isn't enough. Knowing how AI works doesn't help you if you can't communicate with it effectively. Which brings us to step two. So, step two is communicate. So, communication is basically prompting, and it's a skill that transfers across every other AI tool. So, the thing is, tools change, models update and get better, but the ability to prompt AI will always be there, and it will always be a core skill. This is where the fundamentals on step one pay off, actually. Because when you understand that AI predicts based on context, then prompting it kind of becomes intuitive and second nature. But before I show you what works, let me show you what doesn't work. These are 6 common mistakes that beginners and intermediates make when prompting AI. So the first one is being too vague. Phrases like make it better or make it more professional tells AI nothing. I mean, like, even if you tell that to a person, right, they're gonna be like, what do you mean by better? The fix for this is to actually be explicit about what better means for your context. The second mistake, I am super guilty of this when I was starting out, is copy pasting templates without your context. Most prompting advice actually gives you templates to copy and paste. And the problem is those templates are fairly good written prompts, right? But the problem is they lack your situation, your goals, and your constraints. I realized I just had my earphones on the entire time, but I'm not really listening to anything, So the thing is, someone else's perfect prompt will most likely lack your situational context. You can still use these templates as a starting point, but always make sure to add your specific context. Mistake number 3 is overloading prompts. Again, something I was guilty of, which is you're asking AI to do 5 things at once, and it degrades the quality of all those 5 things. Instead, focus on one task per prompt and chain them together if needed. Mistake number 4 is providing no examples. Now this, when I understood, this was a game changer. Examples really beat like lengthy explanations every time. So it's simply showing AI what you want instead of just describing it. So if you can include 1 to 2 examples for complex or custom outputs, that would be killer. Mistake number 6 is ignoring the context window. So you have to understand that AI doesn't remember yesterday's conversation. So each new chat is like starting from zero, like a new intern, basically. So you get a new intern every chat. The fix is you have to give context every time, and there's actually a way around this through the use of custom assistants or projects, which we'll cover in a later phase, in step 4. And the last common mistake is negative phrasing. Instead of telling it what you don't want, research shows that AI actually responds better with positive instructions. Tell it what you want instead of telling it what you don't want. So instead of saying don't do X, tell it do Y instead. Okay, so now that you know what to avoid, here's the method that actually works. I've been prompting like this for, I think, more than a year now, and I still prompt like this every day. So I call it tell, ask, and then collaborate. Tell is basically just giving the AI context. So basically your background, your role, the goal, the constraints of the task, and so on. And then in the same prompt, you ask it to basically ask you the questions. So this will allow it to gather more context from you, but also it will give you like ideas of what additional context you can provide it. So it's super powerful and it's very easy to do. And lastly is collaborate. Once you had that initial discussion and you guys are building the context of the conversation, then you work iteratively to refine, adjust, improve. So basically the overarching theme of this 3-step method is that prompting is a conversation and not a command. Although are there instances where you just need like a one-shot prompt and to get the results? Yes, especially for automations or software, then that would be required. But for 99% of the use cases, you can make do with this conversational prompting method. So why this matters is because remember that research I mentioned where most people try one prompt, it fails, they give up, they never rephrase, and this method basically forces you to iterate. And that's exactly what separates people who gets results from those that don't. So I actually have a video that I go deep over this 3-step prompting structure. And again, it'll be linked in the learning resources and also in the description. But really, the key takeaway that I want you to understand when prompting AI is that context will always beat structure. But the thing is, structure also really helps a lot. And you should be aiming to provide AI the best context, but also provide it with the best structure that you can. And if you want to go deep on prompt structure, Liam Otley has an excellent video on this, and you can also check it out in the playlist and the learning resources. And also one more thing that's been really a game changer for me these past couple of months is using voice to text. Since we know that context beats structure every time, what is the most efficient and natural way for humans to provide context? It's through speaking, right? I mean, yeah, there might be some of you that type 200 words per minute, but it's gonna be an outlier. Or maybe I just type slow. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that whenever you try to provide context to someone, instead of preferring messages, you prefer like calling, right? So that's the same with AI. So you can use like voice to text tools like Super Whisper. And again, I have like a separate video for that linked in the learning resources and the description. So now you know how to communicate with AI and prompt it effectively. But the thing is, knowing isn't doing. Which brings us to step number 3, which is to apply. So here's what a lot of people don't talk about. Getting your first genuine useful result from AI unlocks something in your brain. So it stops being like this toy or this interesting experiment, and it really becomes a tool that you can trust. So getting good results actually creates a confidence loop. You get a useful result, then you get the confidence in your mind that AI can help. Therefore, you default to it more in your future tasks. And because of that, you do more experimentation. And due to that experimentation, you get better at using AI. And then since you're now better, you get more useful results. And the thing is, until you experience this for yourself, AI will be theoretical. Like it's just gonna be like, you're not gonna default to it, is what I'm saying. But there's a danger to this confidence loop too. This is actually what happens when you don't get good results and you give up too quickly. You get a bad result, you get frustrated and say, AI is not good enough, it can't help me. And then enough of this, and then you basically stop trying. And now you never build the skill. And since you've never practiced and built the skill because you didn't have the reinforcement to build the skill, then the next time you try it, you're probably gonna get bad results again, and it's just gonna go on and on like this. And therefore, you'll never really learn how to leverage AI properly because you never had good experiences with it. Where I want you to be at is in this confidence loop. And I know it might be hard to get the initial useful result, but keep on trying because I'm sure you'll eventually get there. And how you get to this confidence loop is actually by just escaping tutorial hell. Which is funny because this is kind of like a tutorial, right? So it's like, please, still finish the video. But the best way to learn really isn't by watching more tutorials. It's learning by doing. So tutorial hell is basically just getting stuck watching more courses, reading more guides. You're feeling productive because, oh, I went through this 3-hour course today and I learned a lot. But I mean, how did you use the things you learned? And if you don't use it, then what's going to happen is it won't stick because information without application doesn't stick. What you can do instead is to just start with a real task, maybe something that you think you'll do like frequently, and try to get a useful result out of that. If you get stuck, then specifically search on how best to get AI to do that. Maybe specific tutorials on how AI can write you killer content for your business, right? And then once you get the information from that tutorial, then just apply it immediately. test it out, see what works, see if it gets better. Eventually, once it clicks, then you'll have a useful result, and then the knowledge will stick. You'll be here, right? This would be checked off, and you're gonna be moving here, and you're gonna be in this very healthy confidence loop cycle. So, really, the challenge for you to get into that confidence loop is to pick one repetitive task, whether it's be writing, researching, organizing, anything that you already repeatedly do. Now try to get AI to help you with that task and getting a good result. Start with a simple prompt, iterate it, use the tell, ask, collaborate method that we just discussed, and just really try to get a good result out of that. Because really, like with learning any skill, volume creates leverage, right? It's really just repetition that builds mastery. The more volume you do, then the better you get at the skill because of pattern recognition and intuition. And the better you get at the skill, then the more leverage you get for your effort because you get bigger results. For example, if I'm really good with sales calls, if I call 100 people and I close 10, then that's very high leverage. Instead of if I call 100 and I only close one, then I got less results for the same effort. So at this point, you know how LLMs work, how to prompt it effectively, and you have the habit of like applying what you've learned. But there's still a problem. You're starting fresh every time, which brings us to step 4, which is to customize. Now, remember how we mentioned that context is everything? This is exactly why this step matters. Because every time you start a new chat, AI knows nothing about you. So it forgot. It's a brilliant intern, but it has amnesia every time you start new chat, right? So you have to re-explain your situation, your preferences, your constraints, and that will get old very quickly. And it kind of starts becoming the bottleneck for how useful AI can be. So this is where custom assistants actually solves this by loading all of that context once, and you will always have it. So now every conversation will already have that context in place. There's a lot of custom assistants in the market. ChatGPT has custom GPTs. Claude has Claude Projects. Gemini has Gems, and so on. But the idea is the same, where you can upload your documents there, you can set the instructions for the assistant, and then you can define your preferences. This saves you 10 to 20 minutes of setup every time, and that will compound, right? If you're using this assistant daily, then that's gonna be hours saved per week, and like days saved over years. So when should you create custom assistants? Well, a good starting point is think of a task that you do repeatedly. Because if it's a task you do repeatedly, then probably would have to also repeatedly explain the same context and preferences over and over again. Remember that repetitive task from step 3 that we discussed? That could be your first custom assistant. You can try building it out. And I actually have a full tutorial on how I build Claude projects that actually work and keep working for a long time because it's self-updating. And Claude or ChatGPT or whatever can actually help you create that first assistant. Again, it will be linked in the playlist below and also in the learning resources. So check that out. So most people never need to go beyond this. Steps 1 to 4 are really the complete foundation of everything you need to use AI effectively. But there's one more thing, which is not a lot of people touch on, which is to evolve. So the truth with learning AI, or any skill for that matter, is that it's never gonna be done. New models come out, tools change, capabilities expand, but the good news is you've already built the foundation in steps 1 to 4. So adapting will be easy because the fundamentals transfer, the habit of learning while doing transfers. Always have an open mind of having an idea, seeing if AI can help you out with it, and then going back to that loop, right, of trying to get the good result so that you can gain the confidence and just keep on getting better. So you should embrace iteration instead of perfection because really there's nothing wrong about not getting it right. Because eventually, if you try hard enough or if the models get better, then you will get it right. And what's super important here also is that you do what's fun. Let your curiosity guide you in a way. So, for example, you've been doing chat prompting for the longest time, and then you want to try your hand at image generation because it looks fun. Try it out. Then, after doing image generation, you might see that, oh, video generation looks super interesting too. So, again, you can try it out. Curiosity really is learning. And actually, I do have videos specifically on image generation because I've generated over 100,000 images with AI. And I have a video explaining like the lessons I learned there. So if you want to do a deep dive on image generation, then again, that video will be linked in the learning resources and the playlist. But again, remember, the people that get the most value from AI are the ones who have fun and play with it. So always keep that fire of curiosity burning within you. And another very important thing when it comes to your evolution of getting better with AI is avoid being a lone wolf. This is really a big mistake beginners make. So finding a community really accelerates everything because you see how others solve problems that you haven't encountered. You can get feedback on your approaches and you can stay motivated when things get frustrating because you see these other people getting good results. Discord or school communities, YouTube channels like this one, where you can subscribe. That would be super good. Twitter, X, maybe there's even local meetups or even just one friend who's also learning AI and you can, bounce ideas off of each other. The thing is, you don't need a formal mentor. You don't need to like pay for these courses or this one-on-one. Really, there's already a lot of information out there. Paying for courses or one-on-one coaching would be great, but it's not a requirement. So the next step is to just really stop learning AI like it's a school subject. Don't try to memorize everything before starting. Like just pick one thing from this video to do today. Ideally, you would find that repetitive task and try to get AI to help you out with it. And again, really, if you haven't watched Henrik Nieberg's video on generative AI in a nutshell, that video is so good. It will provide you with all of the basics you need to cover the understanding phase. Then you can watch my prompting video to cover the communication phase. And then my Claude Projects tutorial for the customized phase. And if you like the information on this video, make sure to check out this playlist where I link all of the videos I talked about. And if you found this video helpful and want to see more, then make sure to hit subscribe and like the video. See you in the next one.